Okay, this is a review of a couple of butane-powered portable soldering irons. A surprisingly handy gadget. If you look at the rest of the YouTube videos I posted, you'll see that they're primarily involving electronics design and obviously in a lab environment. But there is definitely times in life when it's nice to have a cordless soldering iron, especially if you're trying to solder some wires in a car, or if you're on a sailing boat, or anywhere there's no electricity, or even some really cramped spaces. For example, if you're under a counter and you need to solder some wires, these actually are pretty handy items. You can look at two units today, the Weller ML500MP and a Bernzomatic. Okay, so this is the Bernzomatic unit. It came in a nice little carrying case. It's supposed to be usable as a torch as well, but I guess that's not something you would normally use in electronics. But the soldering tip does screw right on, and has a little pop-out stand, I guess, so you can put it on the counter. It also comes with a little sponge, some solder, and a cutting knife, and some broader tips. Okay, so with all these units, you need to have some fuel for them. It's butane fuel. Comes in cans like this, it seems. The instructions actually seem to be entirely missing on the Bernzomatic, but it's just like any old lighter. You have to sort of shake the can a bit, warm it up, put it upside down, fit in the fitting, and give it a little shot of butane for a few seconds, and it'll run for a fair while. Now, this unit also doesn't have any sort of built-in igniter, so you're going to need to have a lighter of some sort to actually get the fuel to run. It's got a motion here where you have to actually open it up and turn it on first. Open it up, and then to ignite it you have to have a lighter below that and get the flame going. You can hear sort of a very light hissing sound, and then of course it'll solder quite adequately. Okay, so obviously the solder iron's on. You can actually see a slight glow coming from the top here. That's the flame, I guess, touching the tip. The tip's nice and hot, certainly. Like all butane torches, heats up very quickly and melts solder very capably. There is one concern though. Basically, it looks like this design has basically hot gases coming out of the top here, and it actually puts out quite a jet of hot air. And one thing, of course, when you're soldering, sometimes you're soldering, in close quarters. You have to be aware of that with this particular model because the heat's quite high. It's actually more than enough to actually char a pencil here. Certainly, if you're working in tight quarters, you've got to pay attention to that. Now, there's also another flaw. This tip actually comes on and it can be put on any angle. And should you put the tip on in this angle here, you get a hot jet of air that actually goes down towards your countertop. And unfortunately, you can scorch your countertop, or even worse, rather quick. Okay, the only other things to note with this is a little nice stand that snaps on, good for desktop work, and an adjustable jet here so you can make it hotter. Now, for the soldering function, it seems actually best to keep it at a fairly low rate. Otherwise, the flame seems to want to blow up fairly quickly. Okay, let's take a look at the Weller ML500MP. This one was a little harder to get. The Bernzomatic I was able to get easily out of Home Depot. The Weller I had to order from an electronics distributor. Mauser had a whole bunch in stock. No, I've actually used this particular model for a number of years. This is the second unit I've bought. My previous unit finally packed it in after many years of pretty faithful service. This unit actually, I found it so helpful, I think I wore it out. It heats up so quickly and so rapidly, and it actually has a really nice stand and a built-in igniter, unlike the Bernzomatic. Really fast thing to use, easy thing to use, and got to the point actually would often reach to the butane soldering iron before I reached my much more expensive desktop soldering iron, which is a bit ironic, but that was just because I've been finding this one quite handy. Okay, so the Weller unit, similar to the Bernzomatic unit for refill, you use the butane can, of course, turn it upside down, press the can down into the valve, and it rapidly refuels. Unlike the Bernzomatic, though, there's a built-in igniter to start the soldering iron. So the adjustable switch here, the gas is turned off. You can hear it now running out. And you press the button, and of course you can see the nice glowing hot. And the tip will heat up tremendously quickly and actually be very serviceable within a few seconds. Now, unlike the Bernzomatic, the unit, when you're resting it, actually is upright like this. So although it also does some hot gas coming out of it, like the Bernzomatic. And again, you still need to be careful when you're soldering in close quarters with these propane torches, these butane torches. The orientation here is actually quite a bit safer because obviously you can't actually misconfigure it, so it's torching down onto your desktop surface. So for those reasons, actually, I'm actually a big fan of the Weller unit, and quite frankly, I don't think I'll be using the Bernzomatic much because of the ability for the tip to be oriented downwards accidentally and causing all sorts of fire hazards, which isn't something that I want to look for. As you can see, there's no sort of keying on it to prevent it from being configured accidentally, so the torch burns downwards.